Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Room, and this is our speed mock, 2-round speed mock of the 2024 rookie draft. Let's just dive right into this thing here. I'm going to kick things off. We're going to have Caleb Williams at the 101. The whole goal here is to have just a quick, short synopsis. I don't think I have to break anything down for Caleb. 101, I've taken the quarterback over the wide receiver.
Yep, and I'm going to go right back into the position. If you listen back to the overreaction pod of last week, you know that I'm going to go quarterback over wide receiver. Even if it is Marv, I'm going to go Jaden Daniels. Let's go.
Don't mind that pick at all. I'm assuming May is going to be the one that ends up in New England, and I'm okay passing on that for this talent of Marvin Harrison. So I'm going to take the wide receiver one in this class. I'd probably take him at the 102 personally. It'd be a tough situation just to see, where these landing spots lie. Maybe Daniels would interest me in Washington.
Definitely think that's all right, but I'm going to go right back to the quarterback position again. I'll take Drake May. I will continue to soak up that QB value, and I know that this is not the popular opinion right now, but I'm just going to keep leaning back into it, keep taking my shots on that high variance upside.
Yep. Let's some people, this wraps up a tier, and I'm going to take Malik Neighbors here, who I honestly can say is going to be 1A, 1B with me. I love myself some Malik Neighbors. So take him here at the 5.
Real quick, just to solidify what our tight end premium is before we make this pick, because I do think it could potentially affect the pick. 1.75 tight end premium is typically what we're going to do for all of our shows, all of our mock drafts here going forward and post NFL draft. And so with that being said, I will not go with the tight end that could potentially be taken here, and I will go with Rome Odunze, picking out that top 6 of what I believe to be the actual elite upside tight or non-tight end players of this draft.
Yeah, if you didn't take Rome Odunze there, I was going to yell at you. So I'm glad you did that. I don't think I can take it would have to be a 2.0 premium with 2 tight ends, start 2 tight ends. Maybe you'll get me to take it over Rome, but I'm going to just take Brock Bowers, tight end 1 in this class. With tight end, you hope he gets a good landing spot. You just hope he gets a good landing spot. And if he doesn't, it's going to be scary. Just tight end, just one of those positions, man.
If he ends up going to LAC, if he goes to the Jets or something like that, I mean, you're going to be honestly, we could see him jump into this top 6, but I think those are probably the only 2 places that we could actually see that. Let's get in a little bit past here, though, and this is where I am going to go with a guy who has flipped for me between my earlier rankings of the offseason. That's going to be Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU.
Interesting here. So this is really where we have a top 7. I think that's been solidified. Thomas has been one that keeps getting brought up. The other name that gets brought up is a quarterback potentially that jumps up into maybe the top 10, maybe the top 5. I'm going to take JJ McCarthy here at 109. I think this is like the next tier. So it's kind of like a hidden tier with landing spot dependent. If Brian Thomas ends up in a good spot, if McCarthy does get actually traded up for, maybe he goes to Minnesota, people might really like him. But he's going to be a volatile asset. So I'm going to assume good landing spot, trade up, and take him at 9.
If he does get that trade up and he does get a lot of capital put into him, I can honestly agree. But at this point, I'm more seed and believe it in JJ McCarthy. I think there's a good chance that he ends up just falling and somebody ends up taking him at like the 11th pick. And then depending on the landing spot for Brian Thomas, I might take him above. So let's get back into it. We'll go back to the wide receiver position one more time. And then this is where I'm going to go with my wide receiver 5 of the class of Troy Franklin right now, the guy who I did originally have in the pre-draft process above Brian Thomas.
I still love me some Troy Franklin. Hasn't been a lot of buzz around him, and for that reason, I think the likability factor. This is the range of players where likability comes into play, and this is talked a lot about on Destination Devy Radio and by Scott, by Ray, just in general. That ADV, that artificial dynasty value, and likability comes into play here. So Troy Franklin has dropped a little bit for me. I'm going to take Ladd McConkey for the exact reasons I just mentioned. So Bo Nix, no shot.
Yeah, you're not getting Bo Nix. I will not give you that. I will not do you dirty like that.
Yeah, I'm going to take myself some McConkey here, or Ladd McConkey, and I just think it's just the likability factor. And if he does end up in a good spot, the whole Cooper Kupp vibe is going to start coming out. People are going to love some Ladd.
All right, I got one more wide receiver left in me before we get to the running back for me personally. So I don't know if that's going to implement or affect
Ooh.
your draft pick potentially in the next round. But I'm going to go back to the wide receiver realm, and I'm going to go back to the Sutherland by me of Texas University. And I'm not going to go with the guy who ran a 4.21. I'm going to go with Adonai Mitchell as the guy that I
Oh.
think sneaks into the first round. My wide receiver 7 currently, because I do have McConkey above him.
And then I am absolutely going to take Xavier Worthy just because, I mean, come on, why wouldn't I? He did 4.21. If he does end up in a good spot, I think his value is super dependent on landing spot. I think he's a guy that could just be a deep threat, one, serves a use on a team and not necessarily has like a dominant role in an offense. So that does scare me with X, but I would take Worthy over Mitchell in my opinion. I really like the skill set of Xavier Worthy.
He could easily be like a 75 target guy who only goes deep though,
Yep,
right? You're just
that's the
seeing
fear.
four targets a game and he might catch 3 and maybe have a big game. Like that is your fear. But he's more than like an MVS. Like
Agreed.
that comparison, throw
I
that out the
hate it.
window. That's not anywhere near the same player. I
Yep.
fully agree with you.
Quit calling him MVS 2.0 or upgrade
But
plus.
I do believe personally that Adonai Mitchell has a higher ceiling than Xavier Worthy ever does in the NFL, and that's why I'll still take him higher. We'll go on from that one. That was way too long. We'll never do that again. Anyway, way too long on one player. I would go with my running back 1, and that's going to be Jalen Wright.
Oh man, this is running back range, right? Like it's kind of ends a tier of wide receivers that I really do like. There's one more, and I think I'm just going to do it just for the again situation potential. If it does work out well, I'm torn. There's a riser I want to get into, but I'm just gonna forget it. I'm going to end up taking myself some Rowan Wilson, and I do think that he looked like he was the best player on the field in Michigan. And I do think that if he does get the ability to get showcased a little bit more, have an offense that passes a lot or has a high passing volume, we're going to hear a lot of Roman Wilson's name. So, very excited, especially in best ball formats where I could just take that shot on wide receiver. That's my only reason there for that tier. There's
Totally
running back
agree.
I want to take, but
Not a player that jumped off the page for me, unfortunately.
oh,
So he's a little bit lower for me, but I do understand the hype, and I do understand that it'll probably be a top 60 pick easily within the NFL draft. So I fully understand that one. I'm going to lean back into the running back position, and here's where I will take Jonathan Brooks as my running back 2 off the board.
yeah, I don't blame you at all. That's what I was looking at here. I wasn't sure if you were going to pass. I think I'm going to let you just take running backs, and I'm going to weave with some wide receivers because at this point, all of these guys are landing spot dependent. And this is again, I stressed it earlier when we're looking at just Mitchell, McConkey, Worthy range. It's very going to be landing spot dependent. If one of these running backs ends up in an awful spot, dead. So wide receiver, same thing. You could be in the number 3 or number 4 on a team, and what kind of upside do you actually have when we get into this range? So I am going to take a home run swing, and this guy has been rising for me just a little bit. I'm just doing it. I'm going to do it here just for fun, but I'm going to take Xavier Legette. And I know you've really enjoyed some X, Xavier, and he also just reminds me of. I know everyone's like, "Oh, it reminds you of Debo," right? Yeah, a little bit does, but that's the upside that you're looking for. That's the fantasy like upside you're hoping for. He has it. He has the skill set to do big things in the NFL. Just going to be a matter of does he get featured in an offense?
If he had produced anything within his first 4 years of the college game and then done what he did at his senior level, he'd be an easy lock first round pick. But the fact that he's a fifth round senior or a fifth year senior, he's not going to be treated the same. So we'll move on from there. We have more time to talk about him in more depth. I'm going to go back to the quarterback position because I do think at this point, one of these guys has to come off the board. Whether it is Bo Nix or Michael Penix is a little bit up in the air for me. But if I'm going to make the pick right now, I do believe it's actually Bo Nix that the NFL guys like more than Michael Penix. And so I'm going to go with Bo Nix here at the 206.
Perfect. That I'm going to keep rolling things in here. Have taken some time in the last few picks. I'm going to take Blake Corum. He's going to be my RB2 in this class. Really do like his skill set. Jalen Wright, you took off the board. I know you're extremely high on him. Wright has jumped into my top 5, but Blake Corum is still there solidified as my current RB2. Really love what I've seen from him. Has the ability, if he can get all those carries, in college, the same kind of carry workload in college to translate to the pros. I do think that he has full capabilities of being a top 12 fantasy performer for us, just because that position, anything can happen at running back.
I'll go back to keep fading the wide receiver position, and I will go to the 1.75 tight end premium, and I'll go with JT Sanders out of Texas, and I'll snipe you because I know you're waiting for that one, and I know that you never believe I will pick him, so I'm going to take that one from you and take the happiness out of your life.
Honestly, I would have passed on Leggett just because I would much rather have taken that shot on JT Sanders. All right, that one stings a little bit here. I look at the quarterbacks. I know Michael Penix's name does get brought up a lot. Outside of that, no one else I'm really interested in. So I am going to dive back into the running back well, and I'm just going to go ahead and take myself Trey Benson. He's been a big riser for a lot of people in the community, so it's going to be likability aspect as well as like his true talent. Like he is a very talented guy, so has risen to number 1 for a lot of people. I'm going to just take advantage of that. Hope I can trade him later.
Normally, you won't see Trey Benson falling to the 209.
No.
That is definitely a lot of our bias that is going into this one. It's not even bias. Like, don't get. I'll take a little bit more than what we're trying to do a minute per pick here, but like, do not get overly butthurt because we're putting Trey Benson at the 209 here. There's very little separation between Trey Benson and Jalen Wright.
Yeah.
And you don't even have almost any separation between them. It's me that has separation between those two. Either one of them, especially depending upon landing spot, could go at the 110. So
and the big thing that people have to note too is like we play a lot of best ball, so taking shots on wide receiver is a little more beneficial than what could be a second or third string running back. I mean, who really knows? I don't think that's going to be the case for some of these guys, but I mean, we've seen guys get buried. We saw, Kendre issues, things like that. And I know his was more injury related, but that's why like running back could go up depending on their landing spot, drop out. Same thing with these wide receivers. Like all of this 112 to 209 could change drastically.
Very drastically. We're doing this one without predictive draft capital, which we'll probably do our next one based on predictive draft capital. But we go here now into the 210 after we got on our little bit of hiatus break. Michael Penix is going to be my pick because I do believe he will be a top 50 pick in the draft at some point. And so he has to be at least within the top 24 picks of the NFL rookie mock drafts as well.
Yep. Don't blame you at all. I was waiting for one of us to cave and take Penix. There's some other names just because I do enjoy the talent, but landing spot will kind of carve this out and see how deep this draft really is. So I am going to go back to the running back well one more time, and I'm going to take a big time riser for me. Didn't have Marshawn Lloyd in my top 10. Just had some questions about him. I am going to put him up here because, again, I look at likability. I look at the ability for me to trade this player later. And if he does end up in a role in a good offense, I think people are really going to love Marshawn Lloyd. So going to just take him here in the back of the second and hope it gives me a shot for a trade potential later.
And I don't know how I don't close out this draft without taking my guy. It's going to be Bucky Irving.
I know.
It has to be at this point, right? I should have taken him earlier just based off of my own rankings. I should have taken him as soon as you picked Corum off the board because he is still my RB3 on the board. I'm a Bucky Irving guy, regardless of what he produced at the NFL Combine. It doesn't disregard the entire NFL tape that he put on the field while he was at Oregon. So I gotta put Bucky Irving inside the top 24. Otherwise, I would not be true to myself and who I am.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we wanted to speed through this. We definitely did. We sped through 24 picks here in under 15 minutes. I do want to kind of touch on who's still available because this draft is deep. We do have a couple minutes. Let's just hammer that out. I mean, obviously, Audric Estime is a big name. Will Shipley. We still have Braylon Allen on the board. Like, there's still really good running backs available in the third. That's why the landing spot's so important for a lot of these guys. And same thing wide receiver-wise. Like, Ricky Pearsall has been a name that's been rising up. Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, Malachi Corley, Tez Walker, Keon Coleman even. Like, there's still names available And we say this in a lot of deep classes, but I'm genuinely curious. Is there any of those names, anyone else still on the board that like you could see being an early second, mid second round pick by draft time?
NFL draft or fantasy
NFL
rookie
draft.
draft?
Well, fantasy rookie draft after the draft's over.
Fantasy rookie draft, I could still see Keon being there. Braylon Allen could easily be there. Will Shipley could easily be there.
Yep. Brendan Rice.
Rice, Pearsall, Ray Davis, even that's a nah, probably not. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. As much as I do love Ray Davis, those are probably the ones that I could see in the front of the round 2 of a rookie draft. But the thing is, like, we see all these names, we see like, how could they not be in your top 24? Once we get to the draft, all these guys are not going to be drafted along with draft capital, and so they're not all going to be available whenever you go to the top 24 of a rookie draft. Like that's not going to happen just because the draft capital will not be aligned to be able to put them there. Whether that's the guys that we have in our draft right now or that's guys left on the board, some of these guys are going to move in and out just because the draft capital is associated to them. So just know, as good as it looks right now, not all of them can get the draft capital associated to them that makes them all worth this top 24. And so that's why I think it's good to cut this off at 2 rounds, even though there are still names, especially like Keon Coleman, that we both hate, unfortunately, and other people would put up as like wide receiver 5. It's not going to happen for everybody. So you have to play out a lot of situations and scenarios. And that's why malking off of other drafts of NFL drafts is a good process as well, that we did not do here, but we will do in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's funny is we cut off. We just stopped taking wide receivers just because any of these guys could jump up or down. Again, but these guys are going to end up being 3s or 4s on a team, or number 2 or number 3 running backs, or even backup quarterbacks. And so that a lot can change how this round looks. So just good to keep in mind. Kind of keep that in mind too as you're trading and trying to move around the draft. Like, where do you feel comfortable? If someone does end up getting, good draft capital, maybe you're excited about the 204. If they don't, maybe you want to move up to the back of the first and really kind of secure a guy that you do have, some love for. So that's pretty much the gist of this exercise. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Nope. Just be sure to tap into everything else we're going to be doing over here on the Fantasy Draft Room and over at Destination Devy. If you want to tap into all of our pods over there, you can do that as well on anywhere you can get your podcasts. And so make sure to do that every Tuesday, and make sure to join us back here next week.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for joining us here in the Fantasy Draft Room.